Well, hello there, everyone. Welcome to the Athletic Edge, episode 8, hosted by yours truly, Xavier Farhan. Today, we have a very special guest, Ismail Farooq, all the way from On the Mic YouTube channel. How are you doing, Ismail?
Great, man. Thanks a lot for the invite. Looking forward to talking football with you.
Yeah, definitely, because I think it's a privilege for us to have you on the show because I've obviously seen a lot of your content, and certainly being a adamant football fan, it's great to see others like you in the community. So I guess we should move on swiftly to the first topic. The Premier League obviously started last week, and there was a lot of blockbuster games that happened with the likes of Liverpool and Chelsea, and the controversial moment between Onana and the Wolves player, because apparently people said that that was a penalty, and me having seen that, I believe it was a penalty because the ball was headed and he completely just whacked him in the face. What are your takes? Do you believe that Wolves were robbed of a penalty in that game?
Yeah, I'm not one to I think football fans tend to talk a lot about referees and how they specific. Every fan feels like the referee panel is against them specifically, and not against some other team or
Yeah.
whatever. And then obviously that can't be logically true at the same time. But like everyone is prone to blaming the referee, and I know they make mistakes, but generally I shy away from that. But I was watching the game and I couldn't believe how that wasn't a penalty, right? Because a
Yeah.
lot of the times when fans are you know annoyed about a decision or something,
Yeah.
and it happens every game, it's like you can see reasons why the referee may have given the decision that he's given, right? Maybe an obstructed view, maybe some judgment about how the rule is perceived, something like that. But in this case, it was just absolutely mind-boggling that not only did the
Yeah.
referee not give it, but also that the VAR didn't at least ask him to check the screen monitor. You know what I mean? I No, wait, actually, did he check the screen monitor? I think he did check the screen
No, he
monitor.
didn't. That's the controversial part because,
Yeah,
like you just said, that if there was a disrupted view, what's VAR for? That's the entire point of
yeah. So
VAR
the
and the
so the
screen.
so the
So,
yeah so
yeah.
yeah so but the thing is that I actually read up about when when the VR is supposed to step in and stuff like that. And the way it goes is, let's suppose I'm referee, right? And I see a penalty incident, right? A supposed shout. And now, okay, I make a decision, I'm like, no penalty. And now they have their earpiece in, right? And so the VR is constantly chatting to the referee, and the VR asks him, can you please repeat what you saw? Right? That's the first thing that they do.
Right.
And
Right.
so the referee has to go through what he saw. And if what the referee saw and what the VR are seeing, because they have all the camera
Right.
angles, it doesn't add up, right? That's when they tell the referee, okay, we need to like have a look at this, and you need to go to the screen or
Mhm.
whatever, right?
Mhm.
Because then there's a mismatch. But the thing that then boggles me is that after I know this information, I know that that referee probably told them exactly what had happened, right?
Yeah.
Because then they didn't instruct him to go to the screen.
Right.
But having seen exactly what had happened and not having an obstructed view, he still didn't think that was a penalty. So,
Yeah,
and
it's completely
the
mind-boggling.
thing is that in I think the Wolves manager, he said at the end of the game that the referee came and apologized to him and said that that should have been a penalty.
Okay.
So they realized themselves, they admitted
Yeah.
it should have been a penalty.
No, and I think one important fact is that obviously this season, I believe Wolves is a relegation candidate, and to pick up a point against someone like Manchester United would have been completely vital for them in the relegation race, even if it's very early in the season. Maybe 20 games after, they would have been looking at this and been like, you know what, if we had gotten a point there, that could have saved us from relegation. And I think that's very important, whatever's happened. And I think the FA has to apologize to Wolves after what has happened. Obviously, personally speaking, I've been an AC Milan fan for 20 since what 11 years now. So seeing the sale of Sandro Tonali to Newcastle kind of broke my heart. But watched the game just because of him, and I must say, what a debut! He absolutely shined. Scored a goal within the first 5 minutes. So, what's your take on this signing and Italians starting to move to the Premier League a lot more?
I think, well, there's been a lot of memes on the internet about, especially Twitter, about Tonali being not happy with the move and everything, and
Yeah,
all the pictures and the videos are him like just being miserable at Newcastle.
yeah,
But I think it didn't show on the pitch, and I'm not sure about the general. I can say much about the general trend of Italians moving to the Premier League, but what I can say is that I think Tonali is obviously, if you don't look at AC Milan, if you just look at Newcastle in the Premier League, I think it's a very shrewd buy. And I think if there was one area in which they probably needed to step up a level and add more depth, it was central midfield.
yeah.
Because they already have, Isaac up front. The Almiron's become had like a new player under Eddie Howe,
Harvey
and their
Barnes, yeah,
defense is really set. The defensive line is really set. They've got really good personnel there. In midfield, they have Gumaraj, and also Longstaff is really good, but they needed to add depth in there. And so
right.
Tonali is a really shrewd buy. And what I would like to say is that Newcastle is, I think a lot of people saw that Newcastle were bought by Arabs, and they were like, here we go again. This is going to be PSG. This is going to be, early Man City. They're going to
Smart
just
buying,
buy
yeah.
everyone. But they actually, what they did was because they've come in a bit later, they've probably seen smartly
Hmm.
that the clubs with the money, the petro state clubs, they're not all successful. And let's try to mimic the successful ones, which is probably Man City is the best run club in the world,
Right.
with the money that they have and everything. And so they went and bought or got Dean, not Dean, I think it's Dean Ashton, from who used to be Brighton's technical director, and that
Right.
guy was the
Yes. Yes.
reason
Yes.
Brighton sort of. He's the guy who appointed Graham Potter. He was actually the sort of technical director for the English FA when they sort of revamped
Okay.
their whole
Okay.
system as
Okay.
well. So this guy is really really good. So they went and got him. They also got Liverpool's video analyst, who was
Uh-huh.
also touted by City. So they got some of the best people. It wasn't just about the fancy buys. We'll go get how Man City got Robinho back in the day, and then
Yeah.
PSG
Yeah. Yeah.
keep buying all the fancy names and stuff. It isn't like that. They're buying smart. The Eddie
Hmm.
Howe is a really smart appointment,
Yeah. For
and
sure.
look what he did with them. All these players that they're getting,
Hmm.
Tonali, Isaac, even like players like
Barnes,
Botman,
Harvey Barnes.
Botman, and yeah, Harvey Barnes. Like these are really good players. They're going
Yeah.
off. They're making a real squad. So I think there's a lot to be said about that, and I think we as in people who support the traditional top six should be scared, because this is money
Yes.
and brains coming at them, and it's very hard to match money and brains in football, because money you can probably have, but brains,
With the
if you
brains.
if you
Yeah.
yeah you don't have a lot of brains. So if you have money and brains, it's a lethal combo.
And I think money and brains could not be more suited to a team more than Bayern Munich, in my opinion, because I think they don't lack the money, but the signings that they do make, I mean, people say that it is run by the league is run by one team, but there is an exact reason as to why. It's because they have the sufficient funds and they make sure not to just go out and buy everyone and only see where they lack. Because last season, I remember Newcastle run a little thin on the midfield because they struggled with it like a box to box midfielder, because Joe Linton can do that, but I feel like he likes to sit a bit deeper. And Tonali is someone, obviously being an adamant Milan fan, I've seen can run up and down the pitch like it's nobody's business. So this is something that they really needed, and I think they've gone out and bought it. So I think they're giving Eddie Howe the support that he deserves after taking them to the Champions League last season. I just want to ask you, across world football, I mean, there has been a large amount of injuries that have happened to a lot of players. I mean, Thibaut Courtois, Eder Militao, Yuri and Timber, all three of them have torn their ACL. Do you think that the workload or the stress on these players is just becoming a little much out of control?
Yes, to your question, I think the workload is way out of control. I think even though at this point in football, where we are at, it's the most sophisticated in terms of not only training regimens, not only match preparation, not only recovery, but also sports science in terms of injury rehab, in terms of injury prevention, in terms of um, just having more information, more research, having the best practices. I think it's at the top of the It's been the best that it's ever been. It is the best that it's ever been, and so I think even though that's the case, we're just running footballers in the ground, and the problem with that is they probably can cope physically to a point, but it leads to a worse football product at the end of the day because you have fatigued players mentally, physically, and you wanna. Yeah, I know we all want to watch more football, but like it's getting to
Genuinely.
an excessive level. I mean, I'm not complaining in a way because whenever
Yeah,
football's on, I'm watching. But like from someone who works in like football, like professionally as well, I can tell you that it's not good for players, for the overall product, for the quality of the product, right? But what I would also say is that um, ACL injuries I wouldn't attribute that much to the over exhaustion of footballers because ACL
okay.
injuries tend to happen through contact mostly, right? That's what, if anyone can correct me, that's fine. But to my knowledge, ACL injuries, these knee injuries, when your ligament sort of ruptures or whatever, it happens through contact. It's not over exertion. What I would say is
Hmm.
overexertion is through, to players like De Bruyne has a hamstring problem now,
Yeah.
and you
Reece
will
James
see
as
more
well.
of these players. Yeah, Reece James, and you also as a Liverpool fan, I saw that you have players like Bobby Firmino, you have players like Fabinho, who were like who used to play every game, right? They had so many
Yeah.
minutes in their legs, and then they started picking these. In Firmino's case, they started picking up these niggles. They started picking up these little injuries. Before that, he used to be available all the time. And then in Fabinho's case, there was just this unreal drop off that none of us could even sort of foresee or
Hmm.
imagine because the guy is 29
Yeah.
and he had a severe drop off. And I think this is all something that we can not make. We can't say it's the cause is only over exertion, but I think overexertion has a part to play in all of this.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
something
I
that
think
leads up to it.
yeah, absolutely. But it's only going to get more. It's not going to get less. They're not going to have
Yeah,
less
obviously,
football. They're only
because
going to
yeah,
increase
with the
it.
new Champions League format coming in next season as well, it's going to be hell for these players. And I also heard that you are a Liverpool fan, and the next topic is a bit of a troll topic for you because two midfielders this season, Caicedo and Lavia, a bit embarrassing for you because both of them was something where even Fabrizio Romano was like, you know what, these two are going. Jurgen Klopp even came out and said that we've got Caicedo done just for him to say no to the medical for Liverpool. So, how does it feel seeing the Caicedo drama and the Lavia drama as a Liverpool fan?
Um, it's unusual because for the last 5 years, Liverpool's success has obviously been built on Jurgen Klopp and the coaching team, but also we realized, or the club realized pretty early on, that in order to compete with this Man City team, which had the money and the brains, which was a lethal combo, and in my opinion, the best coach in the world, and the best players in a lot of areas, the only way to compete was to maximize in every possible area, like get maximum out of different areas. You got to throw in coach, stuff like this, like stuff that people don't even think of. Just try to maximize the little incremental gains that you can have. And one of the ways to do that was to have this setup behind the scenes that made sure you had then, which the byproduct was Andy Robertson for 8 million, you had Mo Salah for 40 million, Mane for 30 million, you had Gini Wijnaldum for 20
Yeah,
25 million. Even the good buys that Fabinho for 40 million, even the money that you
Van
spent,
Dijk's.
yeah, the Van Dijk, the Allison, it was for players
Yeah,
that were just absolute world, like
even
game changers for
Robertson, that
Liverpool.
was barely
Yeah,
under
like, yeah,
what 10 million.
absolutely. So the thing is that for 4 or 5 years, Liverpool almost never missed with a transfer, and they were so good at buying for the right price players that it wasn't about the name. They were just right fits. And it was always the case that I remember still people were moaning about Salah, people were moaning about Mane. It's so annoying being a Liverpool fan during the transfer window because no one's happy. Everyone's just like moaning and stuff. Why did we get Salah? We should have gotten insert XYZ name, some player that we've
Mhm.
seen on YouTube so many times.
Turns out he's the
And
best
then
player.
and then they turn out to be like insane, and everyone's just like, oh. And that used to happen regularly, and we used to have very few transfers that didn't go well. And I think Karius was one, and then Naby Keita was the other one. But for him, it
Yeah.
wasn't that he was a bad player; he was just like too injury prone, right? And so we had these 4 or 5 years of buying just like maximizing transfers somehow by buying the
Hmm.
right players and also selling really well. So we were selling
Yes.
like these young players with minimal appearances for 20, 25 million, and we
Yeah.
sold
Rian
Coutinho for
Brewster.
140 or something. Yeah, yeah.
Rian
And Shea
Brewster.
Ojo and stuff like that, Rain Brewster, Kiana Hoover. And the result was that we were operating with a very low net spend, and we
Hmm.
were able to sort of have
Yeah.
not that much of a
FFP was
transfer
probably
budget.
happy with
Yeah,
Liverpool. Yeah.
FFP, and also Liverpool is structured in a way that the owners don't put in any money. So it's a
Yeah.
self-sustaining model. It's like your revenues have to exceed the expenses, and that's how you fund transfers. So we would always have this self-sustaining model, and it worked perfectly,
Hmm.
and it was in perfect harmony. And then our sort of technical director, Michael Edwards, the guy who was the guru
Yeah.
behind everything, he left. And then he had a successor who was working with him, Julian Ward. He left as well 6 months in. And so last season was very, very transitional in the sense that
Hmm.
Julian Ward had come in after Michael Edwards, but he announced mid-season that he was going. And Mike Gordon, who was like the bridge between the owners and like like
Okay. He was the middleman.
the yeah, he was the middleman who used to work daily with Klopp and Michael Edwards or
Okay.
Julian Edwards and stuff. He stepped away because FSG were then looking to sell the club potentially. And
Right.
so last season, just like the
Hectic. Yeah.
structure had sort of like decayed or broken down, and we're still sort of building a new sort of trying to get back to that same structure. We have George Schmatke, who's like a German technical director who's only here for 3 months for this transfer
Uh-huh.
window. So it's still very transitional. So yeah, it was unusual to answer your question because this never happened to Liverpool. Liverpool were mostly known for, in terms of even transfer dealings, they were known for not having much news in the media cycle.
Yes.
It was just like, even I, for example, because I keep up to date with all Liverpool news, I would have no, so I don't pay attention to transfer rumors because like everyone's linking everyone to everyone.
Yeah.
But like I
Fabrizio is the
follow
really
certain
true source.
journalists and even like Liverpool related journalists who I know are solid, and they would have nothing to say, no names, nothing. And then you would have, like, let's suppose we have today Liverpool in for XYZ, right? And then tomorrow he would be holding a Liverpool shirt for the deal agreed and stuff. That's how quickly it happened, usually.
Yeah.
And so it was like so efficient, so good, and that's what we're used to. And this summer it was the same for McAllister, it was the same for Sobozlai, because
Yeah.
no one,
Okay.
yeah, there was not like a media sort of news cycle
No, it was
about
like
Liverpool bid
one night,
50, they
Romano was
say
like, they're
51.
submitting
Yeah,
the bid, and then it was here we go all of a sudden. Yeah.
yeah, that's how it used to be. But then I think I don't know. I think we just get used to this, and I think the bad luck. It's sort of a coincidence as well. I think Caicedo was a sort of a coincidence with Lavia because Caicedo was just using us to get to Chelsea. Because the
Oh,
thing
yes,
is
for sure.
that we were already in for Lavia. Like it was already said that
You were, yeah,
Liverpool, one of
Lavia
the
was your main
names.
target.
No, yeah, we were already in. Caicedo we weren't in for, but then we saw that Brighton and Chelsea aren't sort of agreeing a fee or whatever, and then we swooped in because we wanted a DM sort of, yeah, and then we sort of agreed the deal with Brighton, and Caicedo had already had these talks with Chelsea. Personal terms had been sort of done. It was just
Agreed, for a very
Brighton
long
and
time. Yeah.
Chelsea, and then Liverpool came in, and the player, because look, it's obviously you don't bid 110 million without first asking the player, would you be open to joining us?
Yeah, of
So the
course.
player already said yes, right? But their
He just
representatives
wanted
were,
to raise
yeah, they
Chelsea's
wanted
bid. Yeah.
Chelsea to up the bid, and so he could go. So I think it's a coincidence. The Caicedo thing is just like one of those.
I think the
But
Lavia deal was
Lavia,
more
yeah,
hijacked than an
Lavia,
actual scheme that Caicedo
Lavia
pulled off.
was, yeah, Lavia was the hijack deal. But again, I mean, I'm just sort of taking this transitional sort of phase in Liverpool's restructuring, and I hope we get a new technical director permanently, and then we go back to the way it was, because honestly, that's the only way you can sort of challenge Man City. You need to be
Yeah, it's
firing on all
impossible at this
cylinders,
point.
otherwise, it is not possible.
Yeah, and I think from a technical standpoint, someone who analyzes football a lot, I've noticed that last season Liverpool, in many a times, were just run over in the midfield because I think Fabinho and Henderson were starting to lose a bit of reflexes, and someone, they missed someone who could just orchestrate the play or dictate play, break up, intercept footballs across the ground. So cover a lot of spaces, and I think that's why Caicedo or Lavia was something that they really needed. And I think you just signed a defensive midfielder from
Endo, yeah.
Leverkusen or
No, it's Stuttgart.
Stuttgart. Sorry, yeah, Wekpe
Yeah.
Endo something, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So I've seen I mean, highlights is not something that you can really judge a player off, but from what I've seen, he seems someone that could do that Henderson or Fabinho role. So hopefully he'd be a good signing for y'all. Ismail, it's been great having you on the show.
Likewise, man.
Hope you've had a really good time. Me personally, it was great talking to a football fan like you. If you have anything to say.
Likewise. No, man, just thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to talk football, and I wish you guys the best of luck covering this. We need more people who can cover football and other sports besides cricket. Not that I have anything against cricket, but we already have a lot of cricket coverage in the
Yeah,
country
for
anyway.
sure.
And yeah,
Yeah,
if you would, yeah, I would just like to tell everyone to please check out On the Mic if you're also
of course.
interested in more football content. I mean, if you could add like something in the description,
Of
like
course, we'll
a
add your
link or
link in the
something.
description. Yeah.
And yeah, we cover Pakistani football. We also cover like European football. We've been doing this for like 4 years now. And yeah, it's been great. And yeah, maybe we can do this again soon.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to have you on again.
Likewise, man.